We're back with the RB Summit, the second annual. You can support us as we look to be a leader in this space and grow the format, drawing attention from both the fantasy space and college football fans. Campus to Canton leagues are the most immersive form of fantasy football. You have a college team and an NFL team, and when your college players declare for the NFL draft, they're added to your NFL roster. It's really that simple. So whether or not you are a longtime supporter of ours, or this is your first time tuning in, we welcome you. If you didn't know, campustocanton.com is the website. Campustocanton.com is on YouTube for your eyes, and Campus to Canton is wherever you get your podcasts for your ears. So this episode will be in two parts, one public and one available only to Campus to Canton subscribers. So if you are not a Campus to Canton subscriber, please go now to campustocanton.com and subscribe. It's just $2.99 a month to get started. This is the running back summit. You can go back and listen to the quarterback summit. Next week will be wide receivers and tight ends, I believe. And then the week after that, we are going to be giving away preseason awards. So if you want football, if you want more football, you have to keep it locked right here to Campus to Canton. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss any of the content that we're dropping. Matthew, before we get into, and I'm coming to you first with this first question. Before we get into the running back class and the strength of it, the strength of running backs in college football, I want to look back a season because it was interesting with the Breece Hall and Isaiah Spiller dynamic. Isaiah Spiller really sliding more than people expected. What, if anything, can we learn from Isaiah Spiller's slide? We're talking about a player who was a first-round pick in Campus to Canton startups over the last 3 years, Power 5 producer, productive as a true freshman. What lessons can we learn from his draft day slide that we can apply to this next batch of running backs?
Was he productive in his freshman season? I know he really kind of jumped up his second year. I felt like his freshman season was kind of bad. I honestly don't know. And I'd be very curious to see if anybody has a real answer to that. I mean, I think some of it was definitely the system. Maybe we overrated how great he was with his footwork after working with the footwork king after his freshman season. And we saw that take a jump forward. And I feel like that narrative really propelled him because I don't remember him being very highly ranked for the most part for a lot of us until we saw that. And then it was like, oh, hey, Isaiah Spiller might be better than Breece Hall. And I don't think that was ever really the case. So that's probably it. I don't think he's as bad of a running back as the NFL draft took him in the fourth round. I think the testing was what really kind of screwed him on that. And we just can't know that. I mean, he did not look that slow to me, at least, out on the field. We never really had any verified testing up until the combine. So I don't know that there's necessarily anything you can really take away because I think the traits are there. I think he's an overall good running back. Maybe we just need to devalue the system. I really don't know. I don't know that Spiller did anything wrong, if I'm being honest.
I'm going to jump in here and answer my own question. One of my concerns with Isaiah Spiller, and this is after doing a deep dive with Jared Wackerly and Nick Whalen on the Dynasty Nerds channel, is that he was a 225-pound back that did not run like a 225-pound back. You could see him get tackled by cornerbacks. You could see him, be essentially dragged down. So he wasn't a big play strength guy despite that size. And I didn't think that he was necessarily great at the second level, breaking tackles. If you're not going to be a thumper at that size, you got to be elusive. And he wasn't that either. What he was good, in my opinion, is finding cutback lanes on outside zone runs. He generally found the hole to get to the second level, but wasn't elusive once he got there. And I think with that type of player, they need to play a certain way. If you are Braylon Allen, you need to run through people. If you are, Jahmyr Gibbs, you need to run past people. And Isaiah Spiller's play style didn't match his body type, at least in my opinion. So that would be my takeaway from Isaiah Spiller, and that's what I would watch for with this running back class. So I'll take, I don't know if anyone else has to weigh in on that.
You have led off 2 shows now with that question, what can we learn? And I think just some of the takeaway on some of these guys is that we're just going to miss on guys sometimes. And it's some of it like maybe should we be more wary of lacking testing numbers? Maybe. Should we be, when we talked about the quarter, but some of these guys you're just going to miss on. Like, I don't know if at the end of the day, there's sometimes a greater lesson than just like hedge sometimes. Like I think it's just difficult to say. I mean, we're going to talk about a bunch of guys here tonight, and probably 3 of them are going to be crap this year. I mean, that's just the nature of the top 10 of the position every year. Some guys fall off, and somebody's got to replace them at some point.
So what you're saying is when we're on these shows to be more like Austin and not like Matt. Don't go all in. Just measured approach. Talk about players with the possibilities, but don't be like Quinn Ewers is the next Tom Brady.
All in is not bad, but I've never bet that someone can kick me in the groin on any of our shows.
I mean, I won
our platforms,
bet,
and I don't have the intent to ever do that. So that's probably where I draw the line.
Only on sure things.
I think one other thing too to note here is we weren't the only ones hyping up Isaiah Spiller, like the fantasy community. Like there was like some decent buzz in the NFL draft community for him. Like he was consistently mocked on day 2, round 2, round 3-ish. So I think that was a miss on everybody's part for Spiller. And I think that a big part of our fantasy analysis, going into the next level, is what is that projected draft capital going to be? And we really only have our gut instincts, a little bit of historical trends based on some schools and size, and then the mock draft communities to go off of. Like that's just such a huge unknown component, and that's going to contribute to a lot of misses.
You know who knew Isaiah Spiller was going to fall in the draft? Campus contributor Noah Hills. There was enough data there that Noah kind of nailed the Isaiah Spiller profile. Like he really dug down into that data, and that I think he's one of the examples where if some people think the tape doesn't match, maybe dig into the advanced analytics. And we saw the box counts, we saw how inefficient he was compared to teammates, and I think that translated into the Chargers taking him round 4. There was a lot of it. Wasn't a lot of people, but someone like Noah took that data and he knew what he was doing with it. And I think that it was a good marriage of film analytics to identify the flaws in his profile.
Noah and I are no longer speaking after his salad comments and egg comments the other day. So I just want to put that out there.
Colin referencing Debbie Debate, which you can find on the Campus to Canton podcast feed, one of 3 or 4 podcasts that we have going daily there. I should probably set the stage for tonight's conversation. This is the running back summit for Campus to Canton. Our top 10 running back rankings, here they are. Bijan Robinson, number 1. Travion Henderson, number 2. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 3. Nick Singleton, the freshman at Penn State, number 4. Zach Evans, the TCU to Ole Miss transfer, at number 5. Will Shipley, the sophomore there at Clemson, at number 6. Braylon Allen, and we should probably talk about that. The sophomore at Wisconsin, number 7. Tank Bigsby, number 8. Sean Tucker, number 9. And another freshman rounds out the top 10, Jadon Blue at Texas. Austin Nace, Jahmyr Gibbs versus Bijan Robinson. Is there any chance that this is a Leonard Fournette versus Christian McCaffrey situation where Gibbs' usage in the passing game could potentially vault him into a tier unto himself, despite the fact that when you're looking at Gibbs versus Robinson, you're going to say, hey, Robinson, that's the running back. But do you think that Gibbs' play style could potentially vault him above Bijan?
It's an interesting discussion, and I'm really interested to see Gibbs in a competent offense, because I think a lot of these, like, he's not the most efficient rusher, but he's a really good receiver type of guys that we've had recently they've all come out of competent offenses. McCaffrey, Stanford was a pretty solid offense when he was there. They haven't been recently. People forget that. But they were a decent offense. The other guy that I think of that comes to mind right away is DeAndre Swift. And again, Georgia was a pretty competent offense when he was there. Gibbs was at Georgia Tech. He was the whole offense. So I don't think we really have a good idea if he's on those guys' level yet. I tend to compare him to Swift just because they're only a couple years apart and they're kind of similar. And I still think Swift was the better prospect of the two. A little bit bigger. I think just as good of an athlete, just as good of a receiver. He was like Georgia's best receiver. Like Gibbs would have to do that for me to be that level of player. Where Bijan, I think, like, we already know. Like, I don't think we have that many questions. He's used pretty well in the passing game. He's not better than Fournette was, if you want to use that comparison. I've comped him a lot to like Gurley. I think that's kind of the back he is, like slightly less physical, but slightly more dynamic in the open field is kind of the trade-off there. So I don't think there's a chance. What I'm basically trying to say is I don't know that there's a chance that Gibbs can catch him, or if there is, we just don't have the data to really know that yet. It's a lot of projection with him where we don't have to project that with Bijan because we've already seen him be very competent as a receiver, basically put the offense on his back as a rusher, and just quite frankly be really, really dynamic in pretty much all phases. I mean, he returned kickoffs as a freshman too. Like he's just a dynamic back.
Colin, I want you to weigh in on this question, but we have a question from Shane in the YouTube chat here. He says, "Are the rankings based on CFF production this year?" So explain how we can get our campus to Canton rankings for the running back position, and then again weigh in on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. So the rankings that we're talking about tonight are campus to Canton based, C2C league based. Now we do have rankings up on the site for CFF, so that's going to be based on CFF production solely. Now with campus to Canton leagues, you kind of have to balance the idea between, what does their future prospects look like versus what production are they going to have in college? You want, obviously the unicorn is Bijan Robinson in this case, where we really like his pro potential, and we can get into it a little bit later, but I think he could potentially be a round one running back. And then, he's going to have production there this year at Texas as well. Whereas a guy like, just going off of somebody else who's in our top 10 here, Nick Singleton, he's probably not going to have that much CFF production this year. He's more on the Devy side of things. So everybody's rankings are a little bit different and how much they weight CFF production versus Devy, but it's kind of a marriage of the two for these rankings that we're talking about tonight. In regards to the question that Felix asked, can we see a Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette type of a situation with Bijan and Gibbs? First of all, I do really like the way that question was framed. I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison there because Bijan is a better receiver than Fournette was. Gibbs, while a phenomenal athlete, I don't know if he's going to have, I don't think he's going to have this straight line speed and everything like that McCaffrey did. So it's not quite apples to apples, but just them being the top two backs in there, these are the only two guys that we can really see at this point going in round one. I like the way that this was framed, but no, I don't see Gibbs catching him at this point. Bijan's just too complete of a back.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I actually think the size thing could be what holds Gibbs back a little bit from getting that first round draft capital. We've heard all off season that he's a little bit smaller than what he's listed at. And while I think he's special enough that won't matter, Bijan's already NFL size. That's not going to hold him back in any sort of way. While I expect Gibbs to go out there and absolutely smash this year for Alabama, we have seen, even as special as he is, that the NFL can devalue some of these smaller running backs. So I don't know that we're take our summit this time last year where we were expecting, Gibbs listed at over 200 pounds with his receiving ability and how good he is as a runner. We were like, okay, both those guys may be first round picks. I have a little hesitation on that side with Gibbs now. So I would still put Bijan up there just because of the complete package that he is. I don't think that it'll become close. Also, because I think Bijan could honestly outproduce Gibbs this year in that offense. So I think that's the only way Gibbs catches him is if he just completely outproduces Bijan. I don't think that happens.
Yeah.
Chris Moxley, regardless of whether or not he can catch Bijan, is he a first-round draft pick? I think that's a big question.
Jahmyr Gibbs? I'd be shocked if Jahmyr Gibbs is a first-round draft pick. Shocked. Like, legitimately very surprised unless he weighed into the combine 208, 210. I'd be pretty surprised, to be honest. But I think Bijan's going to be a first-round draft pick. I think Bijan's a great receiver. Like, we've all been talking about this. Among Power 5 backs last year, he ranked 12th in average depth of target. That's really, really good for a guy like Bijan who is so multifaceted and such a great rusher. He was ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, the offense isn't really comparable. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a better receiver, but Bijan Robinson is really, really good at receiving too. I don't think that should be discounted. I just don't see a way that Jahmyr Gibbs can jump him, especially with that he's not like a guy who's 220 like Bijan is. It's just a tough sell.
Matt Bruning, draft capital is very, very important for these. I mean, we see what happened. We talked about Isaiah Spiller. We want guys who are going to be day one, which is really the unicorn. I mean, you're not going to get a ton of day one running backs, at least in this era of the NFL. But day two is essentially day one for running backs. We need players who are going to be drafted in the second or third round. That said, which of the top 10 do you feel is most likely to fall out of day two, out of round three? And how many in the top 10 do you think are potentially day one?
I think there's right now, based on what we've seen, two guys that I would put in day one. I've been saying that since last year, and it's Bijan and it's Travion. I think depending on what Braylon Allen does, I'm his biggest detractor. If he continues to improve, I think he could, based on his size speed combination. I would not be surprised if he ends up in the first round. And I also think Singleton could as well, based on what we've seen from high school. Now, obviously, there's a lot of projecting there with Singleton, so I wouldn't put him up there. For me, I would only feel comfortable really saying Bijan and Travion. Out of our top 10 that could drop out of day two draft capital, I think Sean Tucker, Tank Bigsby, Donovan Edwards are probably the three for me. Obviously Tank could go out there and absolutely ball out this year. If that happens, I think he's easily a day two guy. Sean Tucker, really good, but I know that we don't necessarily care about all these NFL people who are plugged into the NFL putting out these mock drafts, but you don't see Sean Tucker mentioned anywhere in the top 4 rounds. I do think that's somewhat like he's nowhere, and say what you want. I do think the fact that he plays at Syracuse may work against him as well, despite how great of an athlete he is and how good he was last year. Takes a little bit of a step back this year, possibly even comes back for another. I just think there's a lot of questions around Tucker. So those two, and then Edwards, just based on we haven't seen him necessarily be a great inside runner. He's a great receiver, and I don't know if the NFL will value him then as a high-end day two draft capital running back because of that.
Austin, I want you to weigh in here on the same question, but Todd, a longtime supporter of ours, asked a really good question. Isn't Jahmyr Gibbs' pass-catching ability already baked into his ranking? If it weren't for us forecasting his receiving ability translating to the league, wouldn't most have Bijan and Travion in a separate tier?
I think we do. I think most people do. Is my initial reaction to that question. And that's not like a haha, gotcha. I think people genuinely kind of view Bijan and Travion differently than him because they have the size. We've seen the rushing ability, and they're pretty good receivers too. I don't think Gibbs is such a weird way to phrase this. His pass catching ability is baked into his ranking, but it's not what's holding him up there. What's holding him up there is we're assuming that he's going to show that he's a competent rusher this year. Because if he doesn't, then he's going to drop precipitously. It really doesn't matter. So I think it's actually almost like the inverse of that. Like, yes, his receiving ability is baked in, but it's not what's keeping him so high. I mean, it is, but it isn't what's keeping him so high. What's keeping him so high is that we think that he can do the other things too eventually.
He's Alvin Kamara. You want me to throw it out there? He's Alvin Kamara. That's what he is. He's Alvin Kamara. He's Aaron Jones. However you want to go on that spectrum, he's Aaron Jones. He's Alvin Kamara. He has elite contact balance at 195, 200, however you want to put it. He is an excellent receiver, one of the best in the country already. I think he proves that at Alabama this year. Is the pass catching upside baked into his cost? Absolutely. The pass catching upside's his whole deal. Pass catching upsides are what win you fantasy league. So I don't care if that's 90% of what his upside is. We're not vaulting a 200-pound back who's only getting into the top 20, top 5. We don't see that. We're vaulting a potential Alvin Kamara, potential Aaron Jones, that potential Christian McCaffrey even. That is the dude that we're putting up there. That is who Jahmyr Gibbs is. And he deserves our respect as a rusher as well.
I think the difference
really
between all those
rusher.
guys, I think the difference between all those guys and the road that is littered with similar profiles is that those guys are all at least average NFL rushers as well, though. Like, that's kind of the threshold you have to hit to hit that kind of fantasy upside.
You don't think Gibbs is?
He might be. He might be. I think he probably is. That's why I have him ranked 3rd overall.
I think
there is a chance that he isn't, though, right? Which is why he's not in the Travion and the Bijan class.
I think even if you take away that part, and Mike just mentioned it in the chat, Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara are a good 20 pounds heavier as well, listed coming out of college. Again, we've seen that matters for these NFL GMs. We may not care about. I mean, dude, like say he was listed at 195 in Alabama. Alvin Kamara was 214 when he came out of college. That matters.
I think gets up to 205. And didn't Aaron Jones weigh in at 208?
Yeah,
or 212 or something?
That's 207.
It was sub 210. So was
Yes.
LaShawn McCoy was sub 210 also. That's why I think, and I hope I have his weight right, but Gibbs could be Brian Westbrook-ish or Austin Eckler. Very good and very productive fantasy players. Colin Decker, I want you to weigh in here because we haven't heard from you. We have to get day 2 draft capital. I mean, we have to get day 2 draft capital from our running backs. Or do you agree with Matt? Are there any other players that you could see potentially in our top 10, potentially falling out of round 3? And who would you identify as the potential? I mean, Bijan's there as a potential day 1 first round NFL draft pick. Travion, Singleton, who would you put in that category also?
Yeah, so Bijan, Travion are the only 2 that I think are going to be day 1 guys. I don't know if I'm going to see Nick Singleton get there. He is athletic enough. He's got the size. So if he displays pass catching, like, I'm not going to totally rule it out, but I think it would be a surprise for me at this point. And I think Matt really nailed it with identifying the 2 most likely to drop out of day 2 contention. Sean Tucker being from Syracuse. Chris and I had a discussion about this months ago in the Discord, and it's a little bit of chicken and egg where, yes, we haven't really seen a skill position player from Syracuse drafted day 2 since I believe it was like 2000. It was like 2000, 2001-ish. But they also haven't had any players really worthy of that draft capital. So it's a little chicken and egg there, and it's a little bit too much of a gamble for me. So that's why I have him a little bit lower. And then Bigsby, again, too, nice freshman year, struggled last year at times, battling some injuries potentially. And it was a mess of a coaching staff too. So we'll see how he bounces back. Those are probably the 2 biggest names. One other name I think potentially to keep an eye on as a guy who could fall out of day 3 or out of day 2 is Zach Evans. And that's more along the lines of if there's something in that past that gets uncovered and that scares NFL teams off. There's been a little bit of rumblings about some off-field stuff at times. I don't put as much credence in that. I think he's kind of past that. I think we would have heard more specifically about it now. But if the NFL does hear about that, it wouldn't totally shock me if he falls down some draft boards.
You just perpetuate that every time you say that, right?
It's a good point.
Just throwing that out there. I've never heard that he's killed anybody, but
I haven't heard that he hasn't. I haven't heard he hasn't killed somebody.
Is it really just the curfew thing? I mean, because I do believe there's also a lot of rumors that the reason he stopped playing at TCU was because of the firing of his name is completely left, Gary Patterson.
Well, and some high school stuff too that we don't
was high
really
school.
know what
We've all
happened.
done dumb stuff in high school.
I agree.
Maybe not Moxley. Moxley seems like the guy who was just really cool and laid back. The rest of us probably did a lot of dumb stuff in high school. So like I can't.
He also had he had an extremely late commitment. Late commitment.
But that was because of the high school stuff, right? Like I don't know that we should let that stay with a kid forever. Like eventually,
I'm not. I have him as my RB5. Austin's the only person who's higher than me. I was trying to throw out another name as somebody who could potentially fall out of day 2. And if it were to happen for Zach Evans, that would probably be the reason, is they uncovered something that we're not aware
of. Chris Moxley, we had the quarterback summit 2 weeks ago, and I think in our top 5-ish at the quarterback position, there are some guys with some extremely, extremely high ceilings. C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson could potentially be a guy that can win you fantasy leagues. How many of those guys do you see at the running back position? Is it just Bijan? Is he like the elite guy who could potentially, or is it Travion? Is it Singleton? Is it Zach Evans? I guess what I'm trying to ask here, Chris, is if you had to compare the quarterback position and the running back position, which one would you be more excited about?
I think that's actually a very good question. I love the top 3 at quarterback. CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams. I think that's an elite trio. I love the top 2 at running back. The duo of Bijan Robinson and Travion Henderson are probably 2 of the best backs we've seen in recent recruiting cycles. I mean, Travion was like an otherworldly recruit. He had, I think, a comp to Christian McCaffrey on 24/7. Like this, he was a legit dual threat option. I do prefer the rushers because they're just in their own tier of their own. And I don't think we're going to get enough rushing production from Bryce Young and CJ Stroud where they're going to be like top 5 quarterbacks every year. I do think they're going to be very solid top 12 quarterbacks. I do think Bijan and Travion both have RB1 potential every single year. So in startup drafts, I'm taking those 2 before quarterbacks because I just think that they have the positional finish of numero uno in their profile, while the quarterbacks don't. Caleb Williams does, but he has a lot more risk.
Austin Nace, last year you were very much Mr. Bijan Robinson at the 101. Bijan Robinson or CJ Stroud?
I'm still Mr. RB 101, and I would still take Bijan 101. He's a year away from the NFL. You're going to get a good year this year. Barring injury, which could happen to anybody at any position that we're talking about. I think he's about as nice of a lock. And the nice thing about like running backs is I like having those guys early in a C2C draft. I think you really just kind of your roster fills out around those guys. So give me Bijan 101 and give me Travion 102. Those would be my top 2 picks. If I had one of those top 2 picks, those would be the 2 guys I'm looking at. Unless it's like some sort of weird format where you got to start a bunch of quarterbacks or like the quarterback scoring is ridiculous. It's those 2.
Uniformly around the board, I'm seeing everyone shaking their head. Everyone's on board with that take.
Or else.
Colin, Chris.
Glad we
got agreement. Look at that. Give yourselves a pat on the back.
I do agree, and I'll add to that I've said this before. I think as a college community, CFF C2C, we raise CJ Stroud and Bryce Young's level a little bit more than it should. I don't think either one of those guys are top 12 dynasty assets at the quarterback position when they get into fantasy due to the lack of rushing upside. And while I think CJ Stroud is a really good passer, you've got to be like volume wise Justin Herbert to be able to produce as a top fantasy quarterback. So I think that limits him. Whereas Austin was just mentioning with the running backs, like outside of an injury, those guys do nothing but gain value when you're that good as Bijan or Travion. And I think you can take guys later, like a Devin Leary. It is the first time we've all agreed, Dylan, 100%. You can grab quarterbacks later who may end up getting NFL draft capital that are going to be just as good as those guys. Because the one thing we've, I think, all learned is that the NFL is not very good at predicting the success. And you are completely wrong on that, Nelly, on Caleb Williams. But we're not talking about QBs here on the
Can we
right
boot
here.
somebody from the YouTube viewing room? Is that possible? I'm going to call somebody. I'll be right back.
Outside of the NFL does not do a very good job of projecting
Michael
that
Nelly
success,
Nelson,
so we don't either.
Michael Nelly Nelson, a co-host of Devy Marketplace, co-host by two of our friends, Shane Hallam and Kane Fassell, and Michael Nelson is on that show also.
Crushed that sauce draft earlier this week. Fuck yeah.
Here at Campus to Canton, this is our second year in the company. And in this second year, we have produced 3 guides for your consumption. That's a lot of content. And I'm setting this up for whoever's going to actually do the giveaway. Just take it away from me.
All right. I'm taking it away. Taking it away. Taking it away. Taking it away.
Hold on. Let me set the table here. The CFF guide, the freshman and supplemental draft guide, and the Debbie guide. I think that's about 600 plus pages of content for you. It's more than that. We are absolutely, trying to produce and trying to be a leader in this industry. And so we are going to give away one of those guides tonight for those viewing. I don't know how we're going to give it away. And so I am handing it off now to whoever's leading that.
All right. I was trying to take it earlier so that I could just give it to y'all quicker. Here's the deal. Comment in the chat in the next 10 minutes. I will choose one of y'all that commented. You can't be an NIL member. You get all 3 guides for free, and you barely pay anything for yearly membership. I mean, you already got a sweet deal. You get a guide for free. 10 whoever comments in the next 10 minutes, I'll call you out on the show, and then I'll tell you to DM me or the Campus Canton account. Let's do it that way. Next segment. Let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll here. Austin Nace, Deuce Vaughn, go.
Oh, why does this one have to come to me?
Because Noah Hill swayed you to his side apparently recently.
Maybe he did. Yeah, I mean, I've been really skeptical on Deuce. I'm a pretty big proponent. Like, I'm trying to get rid of all the variables that I possibly can early. Like, size is just a big one that I think it's generally pretty easy. Like, we generally know what the NFL likes. We generally know what, each position, kind of what they want the height and weight to be between. So I think that's, and height's not one you can really fix. So that's usually an easy one to rule out. Deuce Vaughn is like 5'6", 5'7". Even that might be generous. Like, he is just visibly tiny on the football field. But he's just been so damn good. Like, he had like 1,800 total yards from scrimmage last year. I believe he had over 50 receptions in a college season, which is ridiculous for a college running back. That does not happen very often. With him, it is all just about, is an NFL team going to value what he does enough to take him early enough and to give him a role early enough where he can get on the field and just kind of be him, like Darren Sproles, which is the lazy comp, but also not lazy because they both went to Kansas State. They're both tiny backs. Can Vaughn go somewhere like the Chargers early in Sproles' career where they get him in on punt and kick returns, where they design plays specifically, not just little dump offs like where he's like the 5th option, like plays where he is open, passing, receiving the ball, and then obviously build upon that from there. That's always been my big question with him. Noah laid out a really good case on a Hero RB show from a couple weeks ago. And it's a good case. Like, he's been one of the most efficient backs, like in the past, like decade in college football. Like, his historic comps are just, it's like Gale Sayers was on the list. If you're on a list with Gale Sayers, you've done something very, very good. it's just like those guys come around so rarely. Like it's just so difficult to actually buy into that.
I think with the thing with Deuce Vaughn is all of those statistics that Noah threw out, which that was a great episode. That was probably one of my favorite ones that he's done for the Hero RB show. If you haven't listened to that one, definitely go listen to that one. He lays out a lot of great cases there, but no matter how you look at it, Deuce Vaughn is going to be an outlier. I mean, if going into the NFL at that size just does not happen, Now, can he be Darren Sproles? Can he be Tariq Cohen? Can he be somebody like that? Yes, absolutely. Especially nowadays where offenses are tailoring skills. They're tailoring offenses to skill sets more than they're trying to force players into specific roles. They're designing roles for these players who they weren't doing that years ago. So I could absolutely see an offense building out a role specifically for Deuce Vaughn because he is that talented. It's just difficult to bet on that. You're taking a risk, and some people are more risk adverse, some people not, but it's going to be a really interesting case study this year.
Colin and Austin have referenced the Hero RB show. Noah Hills is an excellent writer, excellent producer of content at Noah More Parties on Twitter. He's a contributor to Player Profiler. He's a contributor to Breakout Finder, and he's a contributor to Campus to Canton. Each week, doing a full breakdown on each of these running backs, and he doesn't believe in a lot of players, to be honest with you, but he believes in Deuce Vaughn. So if you are not subscribed to Campus to Canton's podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast, you need to change that right now. Matt Bruning, can I come to you with one of your rival players, Donovan Edwards, consensus running back number 11. Now, I feel like a lot is riding on Donovan Edwards and what he represents for Michigan, which is maybe a fantasy relevant player. He's been comped to Alvin Kamara. As you sit here today, do you think Donovan Edwards will ever be a back that we start on the NFL side of our Campus to Canton leagues? In other words, this is a confidence question. How much confidence do you have in Jim Harbaugh, in Donovan Edwards, given that program and Jim Harbaugh over his over his career coaching college football has not produced a ton of guys who we want to have on NFL fantasy rosters?
I'd say 50-50 because of the receiving upside. I mean, Colin and Austin just talked about how much Deuce Vaughn could have a role, how good he was as a receiver. Obviously, Donovan Edwards hasn't put up like anywhere close to those kinds of numbers, but we've seen how successful this running game can be. Jim Harbaugh loves to run the ball. I mean, if you go to look at one of our great tools that Jarek has built out, you can go look at the college coach tool, and like every single year for Jim Harbaugh outside of 2017, he's over both lines on neutral run rate, which is over 50%, and success rate. Hassan Haskins last year had 270 attempts for 1,327 yards. Blake Corum up there with 144. Haskins is gone. So this is going to be a backfield of Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, and I just think Edwards is the better player. Is he a little bit undersized compared to the guys that are going to be top end backs? Maybe. I mean, he's listed, I believe, at 6'202" on Michigan's roster. So it's not, he weighs more than Jahmyr Gibbs. Maybe he's not 6 foot, but I think if he can put on a little bit of weight, and as we just mentioned earlier, when I mentioned the fact that he's not really shown us a lot of inside rushing, if he's actually able to succeed in any kind of way that we've seen Hassan Haskins do in that offense, and he puts on a little bit of weight, he's also coming from a school like Michigan that's going to get some pub because of the name on the helmet, that I think he can get day 2 draft capital again because of just the receiving alone. If he improves at all in the rushing department, I think he ends up being a day 2 draft pick.
I don't necessarily disagree either. I thought he was a pretty dynamic wide receiver last year. Didn't he have a 10 reception game? He had a really impressive game where...
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay,
he had a 10 reception game. Like, that's pretty hard to do as a freshman, let alone like anybody. Like, you do not see a lot of running backs have 10 reception games. So I thought that he was impressive. And I have him ranked in my top 12 because I think that he's a player who could be dynamic. There are legit questions about his game, and I will fully admit that. I think he's one of the guys, like Matt said, and I think Colin said as well, that could fall out of day 2 in total. But there's enough there, plus the system, to really provide a lot of interest. And while I do have the floor, I'm going to give away my guide, since, I get to give it away. I get to make these decisions. I ran everyone through a random number generator. Jay Haggard, come on down. DM me or DM the Campus Canton Twitter account. Either one works. You got a free guide. I believe you were one of our earliest dudes in our Discord. So if you already have one of the guides, then your choice of the other two. Let's do it, dude.
And Chris is at Chris Moxley 19 on Twitter. I made that mistake last week.
That's probably important to know. Yes,
I made that mistake last week.
What Chris?
I think
Moxley?
Jay and I had DM before though. So
I see what you're saying. I thought you DM'd like a random Chris Moxley thinking it was him. I see.
Oh, no. I made that mistake when we did the QB summit. I didn't say my Twitter handle at one point and somebody didn't catch it. So they DM'd the Campus to Canton account. So that is always an option. But if you'd like to reach out to Chris directly, at Chris Moxley 19.
Good call.
Jay Haggerty, yep, go ahead and reach out to Chris. Austin Nace, rapid fire. Your confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10 in Donovan Edwards.
I'm going to say 6. I'm not allowed to expand on it, right? Just 6?
You're not allowed to expand on it. Just 6. Donovan Edwards, a 6. Has anyone's process for evaluating running backs changed at all from last year to this? I mean, I feel like kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning, but Matthew Bruner, you're shaking your head vigorously.
So if anybody's been listening for a year, you guys know I love me some vision. I don't count that as highly in my rating anymore. It's really haven't worked out for me for the past 2 years. No,
Jefferson, baby.
You know what? He looked really damn good in those 2 games for Detroit. Say what you want. Anyways, no, all joking aside, I do. Running back is probably the one position I've put more value into some of, as we mentioned earlier with Isaiah Spiller, the testing numbers and some of the advanced stats that we get from guys like Chris and Jarek and some of the stuff that Noah talks about, because I do think that helps build a better profile than what you see on film, because I think the one thing with film, what you can see, in my opinion, like their vision, lateral speed, and some of this other stuff, I don't know that you can necessarily equate how great that system is for some of those running backs, the offensive line helping or hurting them as much. So I do think some of the advanced stats help there. So I've tried to put those a little bit more into my analysis, and I have the past couple of years where I've relied almost 100% solely on the film.
Yeah, and my process has changed a little bit here too, but it's just more as I'm getting more and more familiar with CFF and just soaking up as much knowledge as I can from guys like Chris Moxley and Nate Marquise, Jared Palmgren at the site, Brandon Sanders, Chris K recently joined too. Like, all of you guys have just really helped me to learn more about, what to look for in the college game too. I found that the college producers have been creeping up my rankings. Now they kind of populate more in like the middle section, but I'm moving them well ahead of some of these other guys who are stuck in committees at Power 5 schools that we don't know if they're ever going to break out. If they do, man, they could hit, but we don't know if those players are going to break out. So I've been moving those players down and the CFF players up my rankings.
Jay Haggerty's getting a free guide. The guides are not that expensive. $20 a piece for the guides. However, if you are a yearly NIL member, and I think that membership is $79.99, you get all 3 of those guides for free, in addition to tools that no one else has. In addition to, I think we have 1,000 players ranked now between the college and NFL sides. This is just year 2, people. $79.99, and we've got partners that you can go listen to their podcasts and get a discount, a little something off. Go listen to Dynasty Trades HQ. Go listen to Rookie Fever. Find out what the promo code is. Sign up. And if you do sign up, shoot me a DM at Sharp Review, and let me know that you signed up as a result of listening to the RB Summit today. If you want to support us, we've got t-shirts, we've got merch. Let us know that you are a member of this army. One of my favorite t-shirts, the Austin To Be Honest shirt. And I feel like Austin hasn't used that phrase as much since Matt and I stole his name, image, and likeness and put it on a t-shirt. Nonetheless, the t-shirt is there. We've got Campus Camp. We've got all kinds of gear.
I'm working on trademarking that, kind of like Ohio State was just able to trademark the. So once that goes through, I will start using it a lot more.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Before we get into this kind of plant your flag or call someone out, that's what we're going to do. That's what's coming up next. Is Sheesh is in the chat asking about Devon Achane. Colin, you're shaking your head. Can you talk to me about this speedster down at Texas A&M, who by all accounts was much more productive on the field on a per touch basis than when Isaiah Spiller was on the field? Tell me what you feel about Devon Achane.
Devon Achane's a guy that I like a lot. I mean, he is just an absolutely electric sprinter. I mean, he is a all SEC track sprinter. His 100-meter time is like hundredths of a second off of Olympic qualifying time. I mean, this dude is legit fast. If there's anybody who's going to break the 40-yard dash record at the combine, it's going to be him. Now, with that and with his track background does come the biggest concern, and that is his weight. He's listed at 185 pounds. Now, I believe that the reason he's still only 185 pounds is because of his track career and because it's been so successful. And you want to say trim as a sprinter. You don't want a lot of bulk on there if you're going to be competitive to that level. Now, the hope is once he decides he's done with track, that he can put on weight and get up to 195 to 200, somewhere right around there. If he can get to that level with his speed, with his ability between the tackles, which I was actually pretty impressed with his receiving ability, his list of player comparables is actually fairly impressive. You got guys like CJ Spiller, you have guys like CJ2K, Jamal Charles, all like those types of guys are within his range of outcomes. So I like Devon Achane a lot, but he is not for the faint of heart because of that weight. If he cannot get above 185, 190, his NFL future does look a little bit more slim.
Well, maybe we'll hear Devon Achane's name again in one of the next two segments as I got thunder rolling behind me. And we do apologize if the audio has been poppy. We've asked the chat here, and they said that we're good, but we have heard some popping in our headphones tonight. So if you get that, we apologize, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast version later on. Call them out.
Just one
gentleman,
real quick, Felix.
Really quick to answer Ben's question. Go ahead, Colin.
Go ahead and read the question.
Let me answer Ben's question here. Ben asked, can I upgrade from scholarship and to NIL, I assume, and get the guides at any time retroactively? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. Now, if you do upgrade, I'm not sure if those are going to populate into your guide download section on the website. That's something we've been kind of working for. If you don't see those in there, email us and I will email you a copy of the guide, but we will make sure you get a copy of the guide no matter what.
And just to clarify, it has to be NIL yearly as well. Just so you guys know, if you go to NIL monthly, you will not be able to get all the guides.
You can get in at campus2can.com starting at $3 a month. Not even $3, $2.99 a month. You show me a better deal in the fantasy space than what it is that we have to offer at $2.99 a month. We've got, I think, 450 people in the Discord. I mean, there's a lot of content there, and most of which we give away for free. So support us just for that reason. Chris Moxley, you are excited about the call them out segment tonight. And I hope it's not me. I hope it's someone else. So why don't you lead us off here? Call them out. Call out one of us on our RB rankings.
No Alfred tonight, unfortunately.
So
Which is a little bit of a shame because he had quite a couple that I wanted to bring up, but
yeah,
We can still call him out, even though he's not here. We can still call him out.
I pivoted to two of you on here.
No, that's perfect actually, because I was going to group 3 you together. Alfred, who's not here to defend himself, so we'll assume he's immediately guilty. Felix, and I hate to do it again, but I got to go after Matt Breeding. Y'all have Tavion Thomas, running back at Utah in his 5th year, was second in the country in rushing touchdowns last year. Incredibly productive offense, one of the best offenses in the Pac-12. Why do y'all have him? Felix, you have him 30. Matt, you have him 25. What's he doing up there? And why do y'all like him? Tell just give me a quick explanation.
I was the guy on Ramondre Stevenson, was I not? I was the guy on Ramondre Stevenson, and I think that Tavion Thomas has some Ramondre Stevenson to his game. Big, thumper, nimble on his feet. Matt Waldman, I believe, already likes him. He has an NFL body. I don't care that he's in his 5th year. Utah has produced NFL draft picks at the running back position. Zach Moss, but still, they produced NFL running backs. I like Tavion Thomas. I don't know where you think that. I don't think if you're saying I should have him lower. He's an NFL player.
I was just asking why you had him high. That's all I'm asking.
I think he produces well at Utah this year, and I don't know that there's not that Felix is saying there's massive NFL upside here, but I think that there is some. I mean, and you say that, but we all have him ranked within like 8 spots of each other. So I'm kind of like Austin has him at 28. Colin's the low guy at 35.
Listen, I was just asking why y'all liked him. And it sounds like you like him because he can produce this year for you.
Oh, I 100% think he produces this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so why do you have Jalen Glover, a 4-star freshman, unranked? Felix has got him 224. You got Tavion Thomas, who you think is going to be a very productive back at Utah and has NFL potential, whatever that means. I mean, he has caught 4 receptions in his entire career at Utah. We've got Jalen Glover, who's one of the highest 4-star backs Utah has brought in recently. He's short. He's stout. Apparently, we love this situation, though. Apparently, we think that there's great production coming this year. A 4-star that's going to step into that role and then have a couple years of eligibility. Has 220-plus players ranked. He has him ranked 224th. This is a 4-star back heading to a system that is excellent. That Felix said, it's produced Zach Moss. It's produced other NFL backs in the past. Tavion Thomas might be an NFL back. So a 4-star back that's going to have elite CFF production, this dude can't get higher than 224 in Felix's ranks. And he can't get even ranked in Matt Brooding's ranks. And don't even get me started on Alfred, who has 172.
So I'll go first here. I'm going to abstain from the question because I don't have him ranked. I don't know that's necessarily a bad thing.
You 170 other guys ranked. He's not in your top 170.
But my ranking doesn't affect his ranking at all. That would be Alfred and Felix dragging him down from the 170s. So you don't believe that he's
the top 170
That's intellectually dishonest.
It's not necessarily that I don't think he shouldn't be ranked, but I can go through everybody's rankings here in a minute and find out why isn't Justin Williams ranked for a bunch of you on Tennessee. There's a lot of players that are not ranked by everybody.
You can't find that online.
Not all of us have 170 players ranked.
I don't have 170 players ranked, though. I have not even 100 running backs. I don't have 130 either. I don't think. But even if I do, I'm just going to be honest. I don't have them ranked. I haven't had a chance to look at them, unlike maybe some other people here. I don't just go put players in my rankings just because. So I haven't gotten to him yet. Sure, he may deserve to be ranked. I haven't looked at him yet. I'm just going to be 100% honest. So you want to knock me for that? That's fine. But I don't have him ranked for that reason.
I think I even have, I can't remember his last name, Hunt, who is a back there that I like. I even have him ranked. Listen, a man will admit, and unlike Matthew's dance that he just did there, I don't know what the hell that was, Matthew. That was some bullshit. But no, I'll look at it because there's a lot of people in this space that like Javion Glover. I've even drafted him. So I'll
Felix doing the name thing again.
Trayvon
Randolph.
It's Jadon Glover, but
whatever.
Both of y'all are wrong.
Travion,
Stay
Rudolph,
on.
Randolph, Javion Glover. You all know who I'm talking about. I will say, Chris Moxley, and Todd said it in the chat. You absolutely slow played. You did a bait and switch with that one, which was very, very nice. All right, Matthew, since you're all hot and bothered about Chris calling you out, do you have yours ready?
I'm not hot and bothered at all. It is what it is. I guess I should
That's
have
how
him
you
ranked.
know. That's
I
how
don't
you know you're
care.
upset.
Don't post online. I was mad. I was never mad.
Oh, I'm never mad. There's two of them, and now I can't remember who they were. So I'm very intrigued by.
He's
Colin
so frustrated that he can't
and
remember even who he's going to
Felix's
call out.
ranking of Travion Cooley. Colin, you have him ranked at 87. Felix, you have him at 123. The next lowest, I believe, is Austin at 35. And then there was another one, and I can't remember who it was, but it was the
He's
two
not
of
the
you
starter.
again.
What are you all talking about? They have like a trend. He's not. What are you? Why are we talking about Travion
Just
Cooley?
because they had
He's not gonna
a
play
starter
there.
doesn't the transfer doesn't mean he's not the starter. He was very productive when
He
he
is
played
not
last year.
the starter. He's not the starter.
So
I'm
he
sorry.
deserves
That's
to be
actually
ranked
why
123 and 87?
He has no relevance. He's not going to be an NFL player. He's not going to play at Louisville. What are you hoping that he's going to transfer?
Matt muted himself.
muted
Oh.
myself. Well, 'cause I was looking at
Matt is
something.
just all discombobulated.
Because
thrown
he
Matt.
still
He's just-
has value. Like you're sitting here talking about, like there was a player here. I'll find someone who was it that you have like ranked absurdly higher. than
No.
him
You
for
don't.
no
You
reason.
want to talk about Travion Cooley? I
No,
don't think
hey,
Travion
look,
Cooley
if
has
Moxley
any
gets to
value
throw out
whatsoever.
that, you've got 80 other or 224.
How's
running backs
Darius
ranked
Ocean
above,
doing,
dude.
by the way?
Yeah, like you have other guys in here. I'm not going to go through the whole list that are not starters either. You have ranked much higher than them. You have at 123. There's not 123 running backs better than Travion Cooley. And I would argue there's not 87 better for Colin.
Can I jump in here and defend myself here? I liked Travion Cooley a lot last year. I had him probably like around 40s or so, but like I alluded to earlier, I'm moving down these guys at Power 5 schools that are in committees, and we have no idea what their production is going to look like. Like, I don't know. That's going to be a committee. It's going to be him, Jalen Mitchell, and Tyon Evans. I have no idea who's going to lead that. I like Travion Cooley the best. I think he's the most talented, but I don't know who's going to have what role there. They're bringing in a 5-star guy that they're in Ruben Owens that they're paying presumably a ton. So he's probably going to have a role when he comes in. I don't know what Travion Cooley's role is in college. And if he can't get on the field and produce at Louisville, is the NFL going to think highly of him? So he's a guy that's plummeted in my rankings.
Good explanation there. Good explanation. Matt, anybody else that you want to call out? No, I'm fine. I'm not. Matt is giving us silent treatment. Or is he frozen? Is Matt frozen? Or am I frozen?
No,
Matt
I'm good.
unplugged his
I have
internet.
nothing. I have nothing to add. I'm not going to go down the list of players like Emmanuel Henderson, who's not even a running back, ranked ahead of him. You guys have Mohamed Ibrahim, who has no NFL future, but it's whatever. It's
I would rather have Emmanuel Henderson than Travion Cooley.
when he switches to wide receiver like Seven McGee. It makes sense.
All right. Colin Decker. Anyone that you need to call out. Please let it be Matt again. Please let it be Matt.
This was really tough. I have one for all of you. And let me just start off with Chris's. You have 41 running backs ranked. How am I supposed to call you out on anybody? You have 41 running backs ranked on the site right now. Who am I supposed to pick there?
I actually thought you were going to pick somebody pretty solid.
Is Glover ranked in his 40? I'm just curious.
Nobody on there.
Yes, he's 40
okay.
or 41.
It's good to know. 41 or 40, so he's the last guy you ranked? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I have players ranked up to 40 because I thought that it was valuable to provide to our C2C extraordinaires. Because, I only have 125 running backs ranked for the CFF side. So, I think that you could do a little mix and match with that excellent tool that we got on the site, which allows you to do a slider between CFF and C2C. And I say, you can see all my ranks if you slide it a little bit. Because that's really the approach you should take. Just, I got a little bit of game theory for the people who understand the value of the slider and our rankings.
Okay. I'll make this quick on Matt here. Matt, you were supposedly the Quinshon Judkins guy. You have him ranked the lowest out of everybody here. You have him ranked 45. Austin's the next lowest at 43. We have somebody, Felix is at 18. I'm at 33, and Chris is at 38. So Quinton Judkins is not your guy anymore.
Just
I'm
because
sorry.
I like a player
the,
doesn't mean I have to have him ranked that high.
But you were the Quinton Judkins guy. We're taking that away from you. Sorry. Moving into Felix quick. Felix, I had 2 for you. I wasn't really sure which one to go with here. I'm going to go with Carson Steele, ranked inside your top 30. I mean, this is a dude at Ball State. He's ranked 29th for you. He wasn't even that productive last year. Like, he was fine. You know, he was solid. He was a starting caliber running back, but not 29th worthy for CFF production. What NFL future do we see from a running back from Ball State?
That's the thing about the running back position. I think the guys that have NFL futures are not that many. And so after that, we're talking about CFF producers and who could potentially be in the MAC the next Lou Nichols. Well, one, Penny Boone. But after Penny Boone, you know, I think Carson Steele is a potential candidate. I think that the offense should actually revolve around him. And he was a freshman. So, you know, he should play 3 more seasons. He could be a very valuable piece to have on the college side of your CFF league. So that's my justification for that one. But to be honest with you, I have no idea who I have ranked around. And so what was the other one?
And then the other player I wanted to call you out on?
Yeah.
Gavin Williams at 23. Running back for Iowa.
I've already called you out on Gavin Williams, sir. I called you and Austin out earlier this season. I think Gavin Williams is a thick, stocky, bursty running back who's going to, you know, probably be 90% of what Tyler Goodson was last year at Iowa. And I just like him. I just like Gavin Williams. There are some players that I'm comfortable being on an island on. One is Hunter Deckers. One is Gavin Williams. I have Gavin Williams pretty much everywhere. And for what it's worth, I believe Jason DiRienzo of the Devy Deep Dive podcast and Devy Watch, he also likes Gavin Williams. So, and timeout. Let me just say this, Colin Decker. Let's not forget who called out who last year and who you called me out on during the running back summit. Because you called me out on one Rashad White and said, "Oh, why did that?" So, you know, let's see if history repeats itself.
I don't dislike Gavin Williams, but that's going to be a straight up committee this year. All signs have been pointing it's going to be him and LaShawn
Williams is small. And then Caleb Johnson is a freshman. It's not. I don't think that it's going to be a committee.
We'll see. I had one for Austin too, but we ran out of time here. I won't take up too much more time. I'll let other people call people out.
We're running out of time because the second hour of this show is going to be for subscribers only, where we we already have posted a link in the Discord. We're going to reset. We're going to interact with our supporters. And so if you are watching this and you say, hey, I want to see the second portion of the RB Summit, I want to support Campus to Canton, then become a subscriber. We've talked about the price. Despite what Mike has to say in the chat, it's the best deal in the fantasy space. So we're going to end this show tonight. But we thank you all for watching. And again, please support Campus to Canton. Come join us in the show for Campus to Canton subscribers. All right. Peace, everybody.